Wow, it's good to be here again on Passing Through Life. It's been an awesome time with you through the beginning of the year, and I felt so glad that we started the year on a very big bang, and we're still keeping on this program. This is the voice of your presenter, Olu Falae. Welcome you on board on this brand new edition. I'm excited. You can feel it in my voice because today is not going to be an exception with a veteran, a Nigerian, a true nationalist, someone who I've been looking forward to on this program. As our culture is, we profile eminent Nigerians and people whose life and antecedents is worthy of emulation to inspire us to greatness and help us imbibe the right virtues that is necessary for success in life. I have with me one of the industrious sons of Ondo State, one man whose track record is unbeaten. I have a Nigerian, like I said, and a true Democrat, an elder in our clan, and one person you always look forward to because of the wealth of wisdom and knowledge that God has decked him with over the years. I will spare you the details, but this person I'm bringing on board had the honor and privilege to serve Nigeria in the capacity of the Secretary General of the Federation at one point in the history of this nation. At the same time, he's been in the forefront of struggles in enthroning democracy in Nigeria. He's one of the persons that you can refer to as a foremost leader of the Yoruba pan-socio-cultural group, Afenifere, and at the same time, a frontliner in the beating of leadership when it comes to democracy in this country. And he's a son of the soil, a citizen of Ondo State. I have no doubt that you're already guessing who I'm with, but don't worry, I'll spare you the guess. Let me just take this tip. After this time out, you'll meet my guest in person and he'll be talking to us on Passing Through Life. You know, I started by telling you should add a business to what you do. And then Robert Kiyosaki, the author of the best-selling book, Rich Dad Poor Dad, and also a business partner of Donald Trump, said, one of the reasons the poor are poor is because they are not trained to recognize entrepreneurship opportunities. They spend too much time in school, and what they have learned in school is to work for wages instead of money working for them. Profit is better than wages, for wages can make you a living, but profit can bring you a fortune. The idea where that profit will bring you a fortune, and you can only get that when you're not just entangled with doing just something you get as salary. Can you think of a business you can go into adding to what you're doing so that you can also make a living for others, not just for yourself? This person I am with, my guest today, has done that, and he's got businesses. He's a farmer. He's proud to say he's a farmer, and you know, we all know that he's well known in the field of agriculture as a business that he has chosen over the years, coupled with his engagement as a nationalist. I'll let you meet my guest after this time out. Don't you go away.
On the farm, my father called me down behind a tree. He said, prostrate at my feet and say a few prayers. Then he told me all the stories of my brave ancestors. Said, look into my eyes, son, you were born to be great. So in the twilight I went home behind my father with a hoe, listening to the songs of birds. Whispers of the night I was singing 7 goats, 7 bees.
Righty, welcome back on that short break. Passing Through Life is still rocking the airwaves with your presenter, Olu Falae. This foremost radio personality show has brought to you a veteran today, a big giant in the world of people who have discussed with me on this show. I have the privilege to bring on board today. Can we meet you, sir?
Thank you. I'm Olu Falae, the Olu of Iluabu, the Bobaniye of Akure.
Wow. Just simply said his name. I am aware that you all know the voice of Chief Olu Falae is not a voice that you don't get. So if some people, I think, maybe probably clone the voice or something, he's the one talking to us, and then you might just want to know to confirm that he's the one talking to us. Where did you hear from, sir?
I'm a citizen of Akure, born and bred here in Akure. I was born here in 1938. It was a little over 80 years ago.
Yeah. So you were born 1938 here in Akure. It tells me that for a very great number of years, you have lived all your life here in this place, Akure.
Yes, until I left primary school in 1952. Because in January 1953, I went to Lagos to attend Igbobi College, and I was there for 5 years until I took West African School Certificate in 1957. And thereafter, I went to Ibadan, Government College Ibadan, to do the Higher School Certificate from 1958 to 59. And after that, I still stayed in Ibadan, went to the University College Ibadan to read economics at the University College of Ibadan, as it then was, until 1963. And when I graduated, I did not come back. I went back to Lagos to start a civil service career. That was why I said yes. I was here in Akure from the time of my birth until 1952, when I left primary school. Thereafter, I didn't live in Akure. I only paid occasional visits to Akure until I retired and finally came home in 1999.
Okay, it's interesting to know that you were born in Akure. Our audience might want to ask, are your both parents from this place? What are they into? What kind of family background did you hear from? That's like 3 questions in one, but let's take it one after the other.
My father was Chief Joshua Falae, the first Baale of Agwabo, as it then was. He's from Akure here. But my mother, by the name of Aino, was from Igbaraoke. So, and my father was a farmer. But before he became a farmer, first he went to school, St. Stephen's Primary School here in Akure, for a few years, before he was withdrawn to go and live with his uncle, who had no children of his own at the time. And his mother was anxious that her younger brother should not be depressed because of his childlessness at that point in time, although he had children later. And that was how my father stopped going to school. But thereafter, he learned shoemaking, what we call shoemaker locally here. That's what the trade he learned. And he practiced that for some time before he finally gave that up and became a farmer. Before he became a farmer, he joined the survey department. I was a chain man with the survey people, and he worked in places like Burutu, Warri, Fokados, and Lagos as a surveyor linesman. Then finally came back home around 1923 and started farming at what is now Iluabo. So you can see he went through briefly in school, learned a trade, worked for the government briefly, and after Akure came back and started farming. So he was exposed before he settled down to be a farmer.
Okay. You probably, maybe we'll get there, probably took that trait of farming and all that from your father, I guess.
Yes, but my father never wanted me to move near farming at all.
But the instinct is with you.
Well, I just loved nature. I just loved things that are natural. And if my father were alive, I would be very distressed that I'm getting involved in agriculture.
Okay. So, how about your mom? What kind of job was she into and all that?
Well, from what I was told, my mother was an artist.
Artist.
She belonged to a female band.
Oh, wow.
Singers. Okay. So they came from Igbaraoke to perform here in Akure. That's how he met my father. In those days, there was a feud between Akure and Igbaraoke. 2 communities were not friendly at all. Okay. And so my mother marrying my father was not pleasing to her people in Igbaraoke. They thought she had married into the enemy territory.
Okay.
And so for many years, they refused to have any contact with her until we were born, and later there was a reconnection with the Igbaraoke branch of the family. But for many years, they were very angry with her for marrying an Akure man. Yes.
Okay. Thank you very much, sir. You are still listening to Passing Through Life with my Olumiwa, and in case you're just joining us, I'm with a veteran today. My net has been cast into the ocean. I've caught a big fish. I'm with Chief Olu Falae, the Olu of Iluabo, the person you all know as that nationalist, that Democrat. He has to his honors the honor of the CFR and GCON. You may want to listen more to some of the things he has to say on the program, but let's just still go on and ask the regular questions before we delve into other issues on this program today. Your family formation, sir, would you consider it to be that which is, you were born with a silver spoon in your mouth, or you had no spoon at all? What kind of family background would you consider it to be? Or was it polygamous or monogamous?
Of course, in those days, every successful man had more than one wife. In fact, it was regarded as a sign of poverty and failure if a man in those days had only one wife. So my father came from the traditional aristocracy. Let me explain that. His own father, who was known as, whose name was Falae, was a traditional chief, Saribi, in Owose in Akure. Owose were the original high chiefs of Alakure who were here before Deji arrived. They were the aborigines.
Okay.
So my grandfather was a high chief in Owose, who were Alakure's high chiefs. But my father's mother was the daughter of Elemo Adedipe.
Okay. Another chieftaincy title in Akure.
Elemo is the Eketayare of Akure.
Okay.
But my father's grandmother was the daughter of Deji Oshupa. So through my father's mother, we are descended from the royal family of Oshupa. And through the same woman, her own direct father was the Elemo of Akure, Adedipe. She was Miss Adedipe, but if she were not a woman, that would all be bearing Adedipe.
Okay.
So today, I'm the deputy chairman of the Oshupa ruling house of Akure and the chairman of Elemo Elders Council.
Okay.
So you consider it traditional aristocracy. My father came from the Deji and from Elemo, okay, and from Saribi. So there are 3 chieftaincy titles in my father's background.
All of that you are entitled to?
Absolutely. And when my father went to farm at Agwabu, as it then was, from around 1923, by 1958, the people, by consensus, made him their Bali and took him to Kabiesi, Ademoagun, and he was installed the Bali of Iluabo. So he himself became part of the aristocracy. All these descendants, the predecessors were all either Elemo or Deji. In fact, the father of Falae was Adano of Akure. So you can see that he belonged to the traditional aristocracy in 4 different chieftaincy families. And he himself became a chief, an Oloja, a Bale. Okay. But he was a farmer, a little education, a lot of exposure through government work as a surveyor, chainman, and supervisor. And therefore, that combination made him unique among his colleagues. A little education, traveled outside Akure for many years, and came from 2, 3, 4 chieftaincy families. So that is the father that I knew as my father, who was my hero. And one of the most intelligent persons I've ever known. Wow. I can tell you, I wish I had his brain. Wow. Yes. With little education, if you told him you bought something for 7 shillings and 6 pence and you bought 34 of them, Papa would tell you the total immediately. Very reckoner. Wow. Brilliant man. Wow. And very generous. You give anything to you. So that's the kind of father that I have. Yeah. Yes.
Thank you very much, sir. Let's just still go on and then we can take on more questions. So while you stepped into school, how was it like trying to get educated? Since you had a father who was not too educated, how was it like?
But who felt deprived of education? Okay. My father was desperate for education. That's the word, desperate for education. For example, the slate which he took to school before he was stopped, he kept it. I guess from around 1912 in 1944 when I started school.
He kept it for you?
For the son he will have.
Wow.
He wasn't married when he left school. He knew one day he will have a child who will go to school. So he kept the slate. And that was the slate with which I started school. And he took me to school when I was only 5 years old in 1944. Wow. In those days, people would be 7, 8, 9 years before going to school. But because he was anxious for his child to go to school, because he did not finish school himself and he wanted badly to go to school, he took me to school prematurely. When we got to St. Stephen's School, they set for me the standard test to stretch my right hand to the top of my head and touch my left ear. That was the test of maturity to start school in those days. I failed that test because I was underage. So my father was told to take me back home and bring me back the following year. My papa said, no way. He said he missed education. He would not want this one to miss education because if I were to take him back now, he might not want to come back next year. He said I was too young to start. He said, no, I was not young. Yes, in terms of years, but he knew that I was smart brilliant to start. For 4 days, he harassed the headmaster, Mr. Odesomi, who later became Reverend Odesomi in the CAC church. Okay. Every morning, he dressed me up. He had already gone to the CMS bookshop to buy all the books required for primary 1, even before I was admitted. So he would take me back to the school. After 4 days of harassment, Mr. Odesomi took my father and myself across the road to the vicarage, and because the Reverend Otenaike, who was the vicar of St. David's Church and the manager of the school. Yes. So the headmaster couldn't handle my father, so he took him to Reverend Otenaike. So this man had been fighting me for 4 days. He's insisting that this boy should start school. He's too small, he's too young. He won't take him back, and I don't know what to do. My father went with him, carrying the receipts with which he had been paying for what they call Owo class. That is the money paid by churchmen to the church, the annual subscription to the church. He said he had been paying Owo class since 1923. Wow. And he has never failed. He brought all the receipts. And he told Reverend Otenaike that his uncle, his mother's younger brother, with whom he grew up, Papa Samuel Ago Adedipe, was the first Baba Egbe of St. David's Church. that church that owned the school. He said, how can you refuse my son?
My son, okay.
But
He
the
has
man
been
said
a financial member of the world.
that his uncle, whom he knew as his father, was the first Baba Egbe of this church. This is his grandson. How can you refuse to take him? And Reverend Octogenarian said, no. It's because of, he said, no. He said, if you allow me, you will see, you will be able to cope. And he said, by the way, that my father said he could see the children of people who were opposed to the Anglican church coming here. So he said you could see them in the school. You prefer them to the son of the man who was the first Baba Egbe. So they found the man difficult to handle. They said, okay, go and find a place for the boy.
His way.
Yes, I entered school in a very dramatic way. So they started going around from class to class. Finally, they found an empty seat in class 1B. The teacher in charge of class 1B was Mr. Shukulubi from Ikere. So I was taken into that place. And at the end of after 6 months, I believe because of my performance, I was promoted to in class 1A. And the teacher was Mr. Debisi. So in the first year, I thought they sorted the pupils to 1A, B, C, depending on how they assess the age and probable performance of the pupils. So I was transferred from 1B to 1A in the course of the year. And at the end of the year, I came ninth. I remember clearly. Out of the about 100 of us, in fact, 1ABC, I came ninth. I was very excited. I took my card and ran home and told my father. You know what my father said? He said, whether you pass or not, it's not my business. As long as you are in school, that was sufficient for me. Wow. That was how happy he was that I was in school, because he had missed the opportunity to finish school. And he told the teacher and told me that when he was in school, he was beating most of the people in his class. But because he was withdrawn, those people later finished school, went to St. Andrew's Oyo, and they would not talk to him anymore. So he felt
there's already a gap.
Yeah, between him and them. So of course he wasn't as educated as them. So he felt, in fact, my father used to say, if it were possible to buy knowledge and swallow it and become educated in one day, he would buy it. That was how desperate he was for education. That was why he put me in school at the age of 5 years and 3 months. And that was why he refused to leave when he was asked to take me back home. And after 4 days of confronting the headmaster, finally had his way, and I was admitted at the age of 5 years and 3 months.
Wow. I believe that you already getting stuffs on the experience of my guest today. We are still with the veteran politician and national leader, Chief Olu Falae of Akure, that you all know. And then he's been talking to us on how he has gone through the experience of, parentage, schooling, and all that. We will take a short break from here, and then when we get back, it will be another time to go into the depth of passing through life before we round off. Finally, don't you go away. Still my Olumuyiwa, asking you to stay tuned on Passing Through Life.
In the evening, mother called me down into her heart. She said, lay upon my bosom and say a few prayers. Then she told me to go forward, never looking back. The spirits are...
Right, you welcome back on that short break. Is Passing Through Life, still rocking the air with your foremost personality program, and we are still with Chief Olu Falae. We have been drinking from his wealth of experience, how his father, who had a limited school education, had to prevail to make sure that he also went into school. He had the passion to have wanted to finish school, but because he couldn't, he saw the need to be met in his own child, and he is eternally grateful to God that happened to him in his lifetime today. While you were talking, sir, you made mention of the fact that though your father wouldn't want to smell anything farming around you, and right now, if there's one farmer we know in Ondo State who is always in the news, you are, because of the amount of years you have invested into that.
And the opposition which I'm receiving from Fulani husband and kidnappers on the farm. Yes, they've made my farm almost almost notorious. Yes, I'm into farming as a matter of choice.
Okay.
When I was in public service, and I retired at the age of 41 and went into banking as managing director of Nigerian Merchant Bank. I decided that I would be in the banking business for no more than 5 years. That finally I will retire and do my own business. Then thought of the business I would be doing in retirement. I concluded that contracting would not be part of it because as a permanent secretary and as a minister in government, I saw that it was not something that self-respecting and honest people should do. To get contracts, you have to
do a lot of
lobbying and bribing. Compromising your principles. And after we've done the job, before the job is measured and passed, again, you have to go another round of lobbying and bribing. And sometimes we are humiliated by relatively young who, what we call the occupied positions, that could hinder or accelerate the payment of your bills. All that I considered unacceptable to me. So I decided that I would be a farmer. And so from 1984, I started preparing to farm, started looking for land, planning a feasibility study. And at first I was going to be a big poultry. My first dream was to be a big poultry farmer, produce a lot of broilers, which I will process and package and send to different population centers in Nigeria. But later I felt that I will have to produce part of the feed, which will be consumed by the chicken I was going to raise. I was going to raise hundreds of thousands of chickens, and the cost of feed was millions and millions. So I decided to postpone the poultry part and go into maize production. That's how I started with maize production. Although I did go into poultry later, I have since discontinued poultry. I've of course branched into other things. My main crop today is oil palm. I produce palm oil and palm kernel. I produce some citrus. I produce maize, some maize every year. And at one time I had a piggery, a very large piggery, but unfortunately there was no developed market for pig meat around here. And the growing part of my farm today is fishery. River Allah divides my farm into two equal halves, and I've had to build a dam on it way back in 1995-96. So today I'm into palm oil production, some palm kernel, some fish, some maize, some citrus, etc., etc.
Okay, so would you say that the need to find something to do after your active service years led into all of this?
Yes, you know the ages I mentioned. I retired from the civil service at 41.
That was quite early.
Yeah, because I became permanent secretary at 38.
Wow.
Don't forget, I started primary school at 5 years of age.
Wow.
You could see from the beginning.
Very early start.
Yes. And in the civil service, I was one of those they called flyers.
Okay.
When you're a flyer, make very rapid progress. In a very short time, you hit the ceiling. So by 38 plus, I became federal permanent secretary. After 3 years, I got to the highest civil salary level in the federal civil service, grade level 17, step 3.
Wow.
So I was marking time there for 2 years. By the time I was 38, I was already marking time before I was 38. And if I was to wait until 55 for the next 17 years,
you could still wait.
I could not be earning the same salary for 15 years. My children were growing up. My responsibilities were growing. My monetary salary will remain the same. Okay. So clearly, my position was not sustainable.
But some would prefer to remain there, enjoy the dividends of office, all of the juicy parts.
They will only stay there if they join the thieves. They start taking bribes and start stealing public funds, which I will never do. So it was clear I had to move out. The only way I could survive was to move out. Yeah. And fortunately, I got a push. And I decided to retire. Okay. That's the story for another day. So I retired. Fortunately, there was a vacancy in the Nigerian Merchant Bank. The managing director resigned, and I was told about it, and I made a bid, and I was appointed managing director of the bank, straight from the civil service.
And you spent how many years? 5 years?
5 years as managing director.
And after then, you proceeded into your full-fledged business?
No.
Okay. What did you do again?
Managing director, President Babangida invited me back into service as secretary to the federal government. Okay. Don't forget, I was permanent secretary for 5 years. Yeah. Went to banking for 5 years. Then Babangida invited me back into service as secretary to the government for another 5 years as Minister of Finance. So for 15 years, I occupied very top positions in the public service. So it was from there I decided to make a bid for the presidency in 1991.
Okay. And then that story, it's actually a story that a lot of people want to hear. What is the stiffest opposition you have faced when it comes to all this bid to also serve your people when you bidded for the office of the presidency and all of that? What's the stiffest opposition you think you have ever met?
Well, First of all, let me say that until I went into politics, I never made a bid for any position. The positions and promotions came when they were due. For example, when I felt I should leave the public service and retire, for the reason I've given you, I was informed that there was a vacancy in Nigerian Merchant Bank, that the managing director had resigned and they were looking for another one. Someone from the northern part of Nigeria was the deputy managing director, was acting as managing director. So I was accepted as managing director. I was not invited for interview. The only time I had to fight for anything was when I was in politics, to get nominated as the presidential candidate of the Social Democratic Party. Of course, the opposition would be the other aspirants who had to campaign and canvass across the length and breadth of Nigeria along with me. That's the kind of opposition which I would call what I ever met. And then later, year 1999, I had to contest the presidential election proper with General Obasanjo. And I want to say that in the field, I met with tremendous support, enthusiastic support across the nation. Wherever I went, people would be chanting, "No more soldier, no more soldier." In Enugu, in Jos, in Kano, wherever I went, there were huge crowds supporting me and chanting support for me. So when the results came and they said Obasanjo had won, I knew it was the biggest joke of the century. It was clear the military wanted to hand over to another military man. That's the truth of the matter. Because I had no doubt at all that I won that election.
But you were taken aback in challenging the results or something?
Yes, of course. I went to the tribunal and hired late G.O.K. Ajayi as my lawyer. And G.O.K. in his submission asserted with evidence that I won the election by 1.1 million votes if the unacceptable figures were rejected. He had a press conference and tabled this. But despite that, if you're a judge, all you need to say is that the evidence is not acceptable to this court. That's the end of the matter. But everybody knew that I won the election. And so since it was clear, then they ascribed about 3 million votes to Obasanjo at the tribunal. We then subpoenaed, they should bring the ballot boxes from Bayelsa, where he has won 5 million. Total population of Bayelsa is 500,000. How could we get 3 million out of 500,000? So that's the kind of judgment that we had. But I was not ready to go beyond the tribunal for two main reasons. One, because it was clear the government and the system wanted to hand over to another military man. So even if I went to Supreme Court, the same influence will be there and get me the same result. That's one. Second reason was that there were elements in the military I didn't want the military to go. So if I had rejected the result of the election, and many people were urging me to reject it, I would have deadlocked the result, the election. And I learned that there were elements in the military who were going to seize on that to stop the transition to civil rule. Okay. And so I didn't want to be the person to be blamed by all Nigerians for keeping the military in office. They say because of ambition, his personal ambition, he deadlocked the thing and made the military to stay on. So I was not going to allow that opprobrium to be poured on me. So I gave up any attempt to go to the Supreme Court.
Wow, that was heroic. You're hearing from the horse's mouth right now. In case you wonder, this man of Olu Falae said he won the election, but what happened to him? And then he's saying it to us, all Nigerians, for you to hear for the records, that he had to just give up his personal ambition and all of that, just to allow for a smooth transition. And that's what we're enjoying today. Thank you very much for doing that. I believe that posterity will always write you worthy of honor for that singular act.
By the way, Babarinsa, the journalist, wrote an article on this some time ago, about 2 years ago, on this particular episode, when they were talking about President Jonathan accepting the result of the election and allowing the changeover smoothly. He said he was not the first one, that had done a similar thing before, and he wrote an article on it.
Wow, that's true. Thank you very much, sir. While we're actually about to round off, would I ask, for the sake of younger Nigerians who are listening to me, what is your greatest advice to Nigeria as it stands, as a people today? That's just the way we want to cap it up on this program today.
Advice to Nigerians.
We are all preparing for election. We're looking ahead and all of those things. You're a key stakeholder in all of these political transitions and all that. How would you best advise Nigerians?
Well, it's very difficult for me to offer just one advice to Nigerians. I can only say that I offer one prayer for all of us, that God in His infinite mercy, wisdom and love will enable Nigeria to have a government that recognizes the real problems of Nigeria, a government that will have the courage to take the right steps to address the problems facing this country, and so that the nation can move forward. I believe very strongly that unless and until we change the present political structure, it will remain difficult to develop this country. After more than 50 years of independence, we have made progress that is far below the minimum that our resources will justify. If we don't change the structure, we'll keep getting the same substandard result. If we change the structure, what I mean is that you decentralize power and responsibilities and resources from the center to the states and the regions, and give them resources to match the responsibilities being decentralized, then you'll be able to start a new thing in Nigeria. As it is, we're in a state of anomaly, a state of paralysis. Take one step forward, two backwards. When I was a child in this town, I knew of 3 police forces. You know of only one today. I knew of 3. The present generation does not know that. There was Nigerian police force, there was Western Nigeria police force, there was Akure Native Authority Police. Meta, each one operating at its own level. People say, 3, there'll be conflict. There was no conflict. The Akure Native Authority Police, there was every major town had a native authority. Every town had its own police force. So if a man stole a goat at Okiaro, the NA police went and arrested him. If a man fought his wife, but if somebody was counterfeiting money, making currency, Nigerian police would go and do for it, or committed murder. They graduated the crimes and assigned police forces accordingly. That was why there was law and order. Today, everything has broken down. People are being kidnapped as if an eagle comes down and picks a chicken on a regular basis. Because Nigerian police force alone cannot cope with the security challenge of this country at all. So the restructuring will entail having local police. Yorùbá ní ẹsẹ̀ ló mọ ẹsẹ̀ olè tọ̀ lórí àpáta. Because it is, if you went to school with some people and you're a police officer, from school you knew those who are tending towards criminality. But to bring a police officer from Sokoto, first of all, he doesn't understand the language, he doesn't know the culture. He's handicapped for the first 6-9 months and it's supposed to be effective. So restructuring must lead to decentralization, giving additional resources to the states, to the local government, and allowing state government to exploit resources that God has given to them so they can create employment and move the nation forward. Without that major exercise, I'm afraid it will be difficult for Nigeria to move forward. So it's my prayer that God will give us the opportunity to have a government that will lead this major exercise of restructuring Nigeria, so that there'll be more security. For example, kidnappers kidnap people. I was kidnapped on my farm for 4 days. I was treated like anybody in the bush by Fulani boys. They came from the north to come and snatch me here. So how can there be growth and development when there's fear everywhere? So I pray for Nigeria that God will give us a government that will enable us to solve this fundamental problem, restoring security of the kidney, growth and development. Because these are missing. There's unemployment, there's desperation, people are losing hope, they're becoming desperate, they're becoming criminals, and until we address the problem of poverty and loss of hope, it will be difficult for Nigeria to move forward.
Wow. So much nuggets, wisdom, and statements that you don't just want to let go. Just on a single edition of a program. I'm trying to wrap up, but I think I'm having challenge trying to manage the time I have. I wish we could still go on and on, because when you meet veterans like Chief Olu Falae, you don't get to exhaust everything once. I believe that we'll always have another time for him to come. I want to believe that when we call you on you again, you will be glad to oblige us.
I'll be glad to do so.
Thank you very much, sir. You've been very inspiring on the program. Great to have you, sir. Many thanks. While we're wrapping up, a good Nigerian out there will always pray for Nigeria. So don't keep complaining and just start talking and all that. Let's keep praying for Nigeria. Things will get better. The sky is dark right now, but there'll be light at the end of the day. So don't lose hope. Everything will go well. All right, till next week, I'll come your way again with another beautiful edition of Passing Through Life. I believe you've enjoyed today's education. I did too. So stay tuned. Same time, same station. See you next week. Bye-bye.